What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Elementary Season 6, Episode 7, Sober Companions. This is what I've been waiting for. I gotta say, this took some twists and turns I was not expecting it to. First of all, I need to admit my stupidity. Don't know why Hannah didn't make the connection that was Gregson's daughter. I mean, without the ponytail and the police hat, it's hard to recognize her, I think. But yeah, so whenever it was revealed that's who it was, that's when it kind of clicked. Oh, that's what he meant, making it like more obvious, to Sherlock or to his friend that, I need to reach out to him more. Basically, killing Gregson's daughter's roommate is close enough to be like, okay, well, now you've got our attention. And on top of that, just because I kind of caught on when Sherlock said, I noticed some interesting things about what she's wearing. That's when it kind of hit me. I'm like, oh, he put all of his victims' clothes on her, didn't he? And sure enough, it's exactly what happened. I'm like, man, that's sure. That is one sure way to grab the attention of all the cops. So very, very good setup for this episode. And of course, with that being the starting of this episode, I'm thinking, okay, so this is going to be purely Michael centric, and sure enough, it was. What was really interesting is, personally, I thought this was going to be. I wasn't really sure. I wasn't really sure exactly what it was going to be, but it felt like it was going to be more of a, oh, by the end of the episode, they'll figure out it's Michael, and that'll be kind of the rest of the season will be plotting to get back at him or plotting to figure out why he's doing this or find evidence on him. But no, Sherlock goes immediately over there once he realizes that the girl Michael asked him to find is was one of the victims. He goes over there immediately, tells him. I'm thinking, okay, very interesting, very good actor, probably fooled. And then Sherlock walks right by Watson. He's like, oh, he did it, I'm sure. I'm like, wait, huh? This isn't what I was expecting. So really good at keeping me on my toes. And the entire episode, they're building up. Michael's not just this ordinary serial killer. He's gotten away with it before. Clearly, he's very good at what he does. And his intelligence level is up there with Sherlock. Like, he can already predict what he's planning to do. Like, when they staked out his house, he's sitting there waiting, and then finally Joan leaves, and so that's when he steps up to the car. So I'm very curious and very interested to see where the rest of this season takes us for Michael and everything that he's doing, because we do see at the end of the episode, it doesn't really resolve itself. Like, you could see he got the excitement he wanted from these few days of trying to search for him. He got what he needed, and now he wants Sherlock to get better, because he knows with Sherlock in the state he is now, it's almost a cakewalk for him. And that's what I really like about this, is that they're making sure to make it known this guy could easily just wipe the floor with anybody. And Sherlock is probably the only guy that can test him, but even he realizes the way Sherlock is now, it's too easy. He very easily does everything these few days. During this entire episode, he stays like 3 steps ahead of him. And so he knows Sherlock needs to get better if he really wants a challenge. And that's what I really like about it, is that that at least, obviously they haven't said it yet, but they're kind of letting us know it's all about the game for him. It's all about the challenge of trying to be caught. Because before it was about just murdering and getting away with it, but he even says that wasn't enough anymore. So now it's about not just getting away with it, but also being chased and still getting away with it, being known and getting away with it. That's the excitement for him now. And now with Sherlock on his tail, that is the ultimate excitement for him. But once he realized that, it's still too easy, I think, that's when he realized he needed a better challenge. So he decided to take a step away, because that was the only way that Sherlock was going to take a step away, as if he knew he wasn't going to do anything about it. So I'm really excited now to see kind of the end of this season, because I know, unfortunately, the way these CBS shows go, unfortunately, we're not going to see anything more about Michael for a little bit, at least. Maybe near the end of the season he'll come back in. We'll have a few episodes to end off the season with him. But I get that they have to make it very case by case, because you can't have a whole episode where nothing's really going on. Although I feel like you probably could. But I don't know. I would have preferred if they had kept it more of a season long story instead of a, okay, well here's all these little stories while we're stretching this one story out little bit by little bit. It's just, it does make the episodes in between feel less important, unless they do have a moment where something happens. So we'll see. We'll see if they do that. They might. If so, then fantastic. I mean, I would love to see more of it. I would love to see like half of the episode is them looking into Michael, trying to figure him out, and then the other half of the episode is solving whatever case pops up. You know, I prefer that structure, but most of the time it's like 80% of the episode is solving the case, and you know the case always has a bunch of twists and turns, like I talked about before. And then like 20% is whatever the whole season is about, whether it's about, you know, just furthering characters like, you know, Joan's sister or Gregson's daughter, or Michael now. So yeah, I mean, overall it was a very good episode though. I still really enjoyed it. I just really hope that they don't say, all right guys, let's take a break from that and focus on cases now. But we'll see what happens. That's it for this one though. Now on to the next one. See you there. Now, episode 8, Sand Trap. So this was the type of episode I was just talking about, where I mean, it's a CBS show, so for some reason they don't like to connect, you know, their crime shows on this channel for some reason. I don't know why. I feel like they could be so much more interesting if they would just connect more of their episodes, but they don't. We have to take little side detours like this one, and I'm just like, I want to get back to the Michael stuff. I want to find out what's going on with him. But of course, because he's taking a break, instead of, you know, he's taking a break exactly the amount of time that Sherlock is, because that would make him more intriguing, that he just happened to come back at the same time as Sherlock. Well, how is he keeping track of him? That would be interesting. No, let's pause, because we need to talk more about Joan possibly being a mom. Look, I like Joan. I think, honestly, it's not the same Watson that I'm used to seeing, like in other depictions of the Sherlock mythos, but she's been a good character. Like, I really have enjoyed what they've done with her from the beginning. You know, making her not just Sherlock's helper, but also, you know, a detective as well. They've made her smart. They've made her, you know, a detective that can not equal Sherlock, but still be there and follow him. He's the one catching all the clues, but she's following along too. Most of the time with Watson, he's just sort of there. You know, he's smart too, but he's just sort of there. He's just a doctor. He can help Sherlock with certain things, but for the most part, he's just along for the ride. This Sherlock is different. They've made her smarter. They've made her be a good partner, not just a helper, a partner. And that's made her more intriguing. However, this is not the type of story that I want to see in this show. Like, it doesn't feel right for this show. It doesn't feel like a storyline I expect to see for this show. To hear Sherlock talking about it, it just sounds weird. You know, because he's supposed to be a sociopath. He shouldn't care that Joan wants a kid. To him, it could be an interesting experiment maybe, but to hear him talking about her like, oh yeah, you know, I know she'd make a great mother. I could leave. It's what she needs. Like, it sounds like somebody that cares, that has emotions, that has a social cues understood. Sherlock's not supposed to understand social cues. And he's sitting here talking about how he would leave if she would get the baby. He shouldn't understand that. He would just be like, oh, okay. So does this mean we have another mouth to feed? Like, okay then. You know, why do you want to do this? He would not even bother talking about leaving. Most of the time he'd be like, oh, so when are you moving out? Like, it's weird. You know, there are times whenever I feel like they capture Sherlock really, really well. And then there's episodes like this one where it's just kind of like, no, you don't get it. You're putting on another crime melodrama, you know, that just has the title character, his name is Sherlock. That's about the only representation of Sherlock, is the fact that the name's the same. So that was just a really, again, I don't necessarily have a problem with this type of storyline. I just don't think it fits the show. As far as the case is concerned, you know, again, it's just another decent case, you know, following all the clues. I still feel like there's just one step too many again. You know, have this one guy get framed at the end. I felt like that was just a little too much. You didn't have to have this guy get framed. You could have them realize, oh, he's just not the bad guy. We actually found who is. But no, you have to have the real bad guy kill somebody in the same way that this other, I think he was a crime boss of some sort, kill this guy in the same way that this other guy did. And now we realize, oh, he's being framed, and then we find out who really did it. And it's an extra step that didn't need to be there. But at the same time, I don't want them to spend more time on this whole should Joan be a mom thing. And on top of that, how cliche is it to have the birth mother realize, oh, she wants to keep the baby now. That's why Joan can't get a kid. Like, and the other thing about it is that clearly they're spending more than a couple episodes on this, because we saw the one where she, her therapist talked about her being good as a mom, and then we saw her looking up adoption, people. So this is the third episode we've had where it's been hinted she's going to adopt. So clearly they want to do this, which means this whole episode was just a waste of time. It was for this one girl to figure out, oh, I still want to be a mom. I don't know who she is. She's a random character that showed up this one episode. Who cares if she finds out she actually wants to be a mom? I mean, I guess maybe it'll help Joan have a realization like, oh, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I should just keep the life I wanted. But it sounded more like she was almost telling Joan, yeah, you can be the mom you want to be and also keep the life you want to have too, because you can do anything. Great. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I in my mind, the prospect of Watson having a kid and Sherlock having to deal with it could be funny, could be interesting. But in this show, the way that they handle Sherlock, I'm not really interested in seeing that. Because let's be honest, they'll find a way to ruin it. They'll find a way to make it not funny. They'll find a way to make Sherlock be human. And he shouldn't be human. That's not... I feel like I've had this complaint about the show a few times, where Sherlock feels almost too human. It's like, part of the fun of his character is he's not supposed to be. He's supposed to be sociopathic. But he's very good at what he does. It would be like, watching House. If you guys ever watched that show, he, most of the time, was a jerk. If there was ever an episode where he wasn't a jerk, it felt weird, but that was the point of that episode, was he was not being a jerk, and there was a reason for it. It wasn't just, oh, for some reason he's not being a jerk today, he's just being happy. So, you compare, for this Sherlock, most of the time he feels like, oh yeah, he's a sociopath, he doesn't understand social cues, he's not quite there mentally as far on the social spectrum. But then all of a sudden episodes like this will happen where he does have a moment of humanity and there's no explanation for it. It's not like he had a reason for it. It's not like something happened that caused him to experience human emotion normally. It just happens. And it's just bad screenwriting. It's bad character development. Because nothing triggered this. It happened that way. And if they had developed him to where he started to be more human as the seasons went on, that would be one thing. But for the most part, like, aside from developing his relationship with Joan and actually treating her more like an equal rather than just his help that's trying to keep him under control, that's about the only development that I've seen that happened naturally. The rest of it, as far as him being human, it just sort of pops up sporadically. That he'll just all of a sudden have this moment of clarity and be like, oh, I understand social cues now. So, anyways, it's a rant that I need to get off my head, because watching this episode and that one scene where he was talking to the girl that was going to have the baby, that's when it all clicked. I'm like, this is the problem with the show. This is why this show does not nearly measure up to the shows like Sherlock or the movies with Robert Downey Jr. in it. Like, there's no comparison, because too many times you have too many un-Sherlock moments for Sherlock Holmes, and that's a problem. So anyways, with that being said, hopefully, because season 5 is definitely where it took a few steps up. It felt more and more like Sherlock was not Sherlock. Hopefully this season, this is the real big first one that I felt for this season. I'm really hoping it's the only one. But I also feel like it's not going to be, because Joan wants a baby. And they seem to want to make Sherlock okay with that. And I am not okay with that. So, anyways, that's it for this episode. Now into the final of these 3. See you there. And now episode 9, Nobody Lives Forever, except for rats. Because rats, wow. Lats. Huh. Must be tired again. Anyways, so the case for this one, pretty straightforward. The only part that really caught my attention the most... Actually, no, I will talk two parts. The first part, just when the one lady steals the rats. I hate how many times the show wants to drag out some of these cases, and so they have the most ridiculous things happen from time to time. This one in particular just really cracked me up. Like, it made me upset in a sense that I'm like, God, I can't believe they're actually doing this. But at the same time, it also made me laugh because I'm like, this is so stupid. Like, what guy, oh, there's fireworks going on outside. All right, well, I know the only one here, and I know I have these rats that, came specifically from the police. It's supposed to be evidence in a very important case. I'm going to walk right outside and leave the door right unlocked in case anybody wants to come on in. Huh? What? And there's no security cameras? The only thing about that whole scene that was good is the fact that there was a Boston Terrier in it, and I love Boston Terriers. Other than that, that entire whole animal control thing was ridiculous. It ended up being pointless. Like, the girl stealing the rats had nothing to do with it. I mean, okay, she was stealing it for the Galahad Prize, and that led them to Galahad Industries, where they find out about this whole thing about making the rats live. Why do I keep saying lats? I'm trying to say rats live, and instead it's coming out as lats riv. I don't know why. It's not really a tongue twister. I don't know. Anyways, but you could have cut out that entire scene. You could have just had somebody at the college be like, "Oh yeah, those rats. He was trying to get the Galahad Prize because of that." You didn't have to have like an extra 10 minutes with this guy being an idiot and walking outside just because he heard fireworks and not locking the door, even though clearly it's important stuff that he has inside of there. So that was dumb. And also, the guy cut his fingernails and didn't he threw them away, but he didn't think to get rid of them? Like, because they came and talked to him 2 days before, or I don't know how, but it was more than 2 days before they came back to accuse him of the murder. You're telling me those nails were still in his trash can, like he didn't get rid of them completely? It seemed a little far-fetched to me. But anyways, as far as the story on the outside, that part of it was actually okay. We got to see Alfredo. God, I swear I've heard the name Alfonso in another one of these shows, and Alfredo and Alfonso just sort of combined for some reason. But we got to see Alfredo. He was apparently looking for money for his brother. Sherlock still has issues with his brother. Also, kind of his own residual feelings for Mycroft came out in it as well. And I do kind of like that. There were definitely moments in this story about his brother that felt much more Sherlock and his resentment for him. The way he was talking to Joan about it. He just very curtly cuts her off and was just like, oh, if only I had given you 3.5 orgasms, maybe you feel the same way about me. Like, it was very Sherlock of him. Which again, just like I talked about in the last episode, sometimes they have episodes like this where he feels like Sherlock Holmes, and then other times, last episode, and he feels human. But anyways, ultimately though, he does manage to he goes directly, because he tries to give the money, because Alfredo was looking to just rob a place. So he tries to give the money to Alfredo to say, here you go. But like, it's his own money, to help out his brother. But Alfredo's like, that's not the point. The point is, you have this resentment for your own brother that's spilling over into my brother, and that's a problem that you got to deal with. So ultimately, Sherlock does go straight to his brother, gives him the money for it, and then forgives him. And I'm like, that's actually growth. It's good development for him, because he knows that he can't just harbor this resentment for his brother. And while I think it would be difficult, I wish it hadn't happened over like one episode, but at the same time, also he's been harboring this resentment for a long time. But I do like the idea of him finally growing enough to overcome that. However, at the end of this episode, he tries to reconnect with his brother and finds out that he died of an intracranial hemorrhage, is what it's called. And kind of on the fence about this. On the one hand, it could be false. Like Joan even mentions, he's faked his death before, which is why I'm kind of like, this feels more real, because even she brings that up, and Sherlock's like, no, this is not the same thing. But if that is the case, if he did fake his death, hopefully he's going to make a last season return, like in the next season, which is the last season of the series. Hopefully he makes his return there, and there's going to be something with it. There's going to be some reason why he had to fake his death, and it's gonna be some intense finale thing that's gonna happen. I hope. I doubt, but I hope. And the only reason I doubt it is because of the fact, oh well, he's faked his death before. They brought that up, and so I'm like, well, this feels more real then. If they tried to make it be like, oh, I'm so sorry, and didn't really bring up the fact that he's faked his death before, I would be more inclined to believe this. But whenever they bring up something, it's almost kind of like, no, that's not going to be the case. And if he really did die off screen like that, I'll be a little disappointed, if I'm being perfectly honest. Like, I wanted to see more about Mycroft. And maybe they can't get the actor back. And if that's the case, whatever, you got to write around it. But I don't know. It was very intriguing, especially in this show, because it really made Sherlock seem like he was off his game whenever Mycroft was around. And I did have my issues with that, but it brought out a different side of Sherlock that we weren't expecting to see. And for the most part, I kind of liked the interaction between them. Like, it felt very real for who their characters are. So I hope it's not real. I hope it's all made up and, Mycroft had a reason to fake his death. Who knows? But yeah, that's about it for these 3 episodes, though. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Let me know what you can talk about, discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Elementary reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.